We're time.
Hey, Joe.
Good evening. I'll call the September 23rd council meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Coin, DeSalvo, Hare,
Here.
Hazeltine,
Present.
Rose,
Here.
Shields,
Here.
Simpson.
Here.
Reading of the minutes.
Mr. President,
Mr. Simpson.
I'd like to accept I'm trying to find what the date was for that last meeting.
September 9th. Make a motion for the September
Yeah.
9th.
I make a motion for the September 9th meeting presented by the clerk be accepted.
Second.
Any further discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll on the reading of the minutes?
Hazeltine,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Shields,
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes.
Hare,
Yes.
Reports of standing committees. The Finance Committee, we will not have a finance meeting again until 3 weeks from, actually it's 3 weeks and a day because it will be Tuesday, October 15th because of President's Day. So Tuesday, October 15th will be the next finance meeting. For public properties, we do have one item for request for council action, so we'll be scheduling a public properties meeting soon. Health, Safety, and Sanitation, Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. President. No meeting scheduled, nothing to report.
Thank you. Special legislation, Mr. Rose.
Thank you, Mr. President. No meeting scheduled and nothing to report.
Thank you. Streets and Sidewalks, Ms. Hare.
Thank you, Mr. President. No meeting scheduled and nothing to report.
And Water and Utilities, Ms. Hazeltine.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nothing to report and no meeting scheduled.
Thank you. And Emerging Technologies would be Mrs. DeSalvo, but she's not here tonight. I know they were working on a meeting, I believe, to set up a meeting soon here. Request for council action for the Finance Committee, 24-191, budget amendments, 24-192, amend ordinance 11924, expenditure to road fitness, 24-193, expenditure over $20,000 for Pioneer waterproofing, plan year 22 chip, 24-194, amend ordinance 12824, Medina Courthouse lease payments, 24-195, amend ordinance 59-24, 2024 concrete street repair program, 24-196, fair market value estimates for South Court sanitary sewer relocation, 24-197, increase expenditure to Withrow Construction PO number 2024-1383, 24-198, amend code chapter 1519 for fireworks and chapter 549 carrying concealed weapons, 24-200, change order Green Home Solutions for plan year 2022, and for public properties, 24-199, Lake Medina Improvements Trail Planner, Medina County Park District. Reports of municipal officers. This evening, the mayor is not here, so Mr. Coyne, as council president, is filling in as the mayor. Mr. Coyne?
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't want to overstep my bounds as acting mayor, but I do want to recognize council again for
That
their hard
president
work
is
and
something else.
their
Let me tell you.
efforts they've made. You've guys done a great job, and we appreciate all you do for the city. So I just want to recognize that. And with that, the city's doing well, and we'll continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coyne. Finance Director, Mr. Durham.
Thank you, Mr. President. As all of you on council know, the city has a levy on this fall. It is for the city's portion of the EMS life support team. There it is. It's going to come up there. There's a link on your screen. There's a video that was put together. Thank you for the cable department, Mr. Fry, Mr. Simpson, and I, and Joe Toth, who's here also from LST, did a video of information about that levy that you can watch at that link. It is a renewal levy, no increase in the taxes, and it pays for the city's share of the life support team. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Durham. Mr. Huber, Law Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Thank you. Ms. Kimberly Marshall, Economic Development Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple items to note for council and the public this evening. Friday, October 4th is our next ribbon cutting day. We have two events scheduled. The first one will be at 3:00 p.m. for Recoup and Relief Counseling and Therapeutic Services. This is a new and expanding business at 803 East Washington Street in Suite 200. And then 4:00, we'll come back up to the square for Project Learn, who is doing an expansion project for their learning facilities at 39 Public Square in Suite 202. So we hope that you will be able to join us. And the second item to know is just for the public, we launched our new Medina Talent Search newsletter. It comes out on Wednesdays, where we highlight various employment opportunities with different companies throughout the city of Medina, as well as our own city of Medina job opportunities. If you would like to register to receive the newsletter, you can go to our website at www.medinaoh.org. And on the home page, scroll down to the very bottom and click on the link titled Workforce Newsletter, and then you can put your name and email address, and then you will receive the Medina Talent Search newsletter. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Marshall. Medina Police Chief Kinney.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're continuing to accept applications for the municipal deer hunting program. Bow season starts September 28th and goes on to February 2nd of 2025. I just want to remind the public that you must come to the police department, submit an application, and receive a permit to legally hunt inside the city. If you don't have a permit, you're not legally hunting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Toth, LST.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through August, the life support team responded to 2,508 calls. That's an increase of 189 from the previous year. And for all three entities, we responded to 3,851 calls, which is an increase of 307 from the same time last year. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Piccoli, Service Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'm happy to report last Thursday, our crews in connection with contractor HSH moved the interurban safely. We did not use the crane. They actually were innovative and used the beams in two of the city's backhoes and did a test lift. The long and short of it is it did get moved, and it's over on a trailer at the Feckley lot for now. We're going to winterize it, and then we'll figure out, I guess, what the future holds for that building. And then you heard Mr. Coyne reference at our last council meeting the deer count when he was talking with Chief Kinney with respect at the end of the meeting about the deer pickup. We have 84 2 weeks ago. Today we're at 91. So we've increased 7 in 2 weeks, and this is actually the rut season, and it starts, so we're probably on pace for another 30, unfortunately, as we go through the end of the year. So we just tell folks to be careful because they're moving everywhere.
Thank you, Mr. Piccoli. Medina Fire Department, Chief Walters.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Thank you. And Mr. Dutton, Planning and Community Development Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Thank you. Notices, communications, and petitions. We have a liquor permit not to object to the transfer of a C1 and C2 permit from Jammers Corp. Doing business as 7-Eleven, 1050 North Court, to 7-Eleven Incorporated, a Texas corporation, 1050 North Court Street.
Move not to object.
Second.
Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Rose,
Yes.
Shields,
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes.
Hare,
Yes.
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0. I'm sorry, 5-0.
Thank you. Unfinished business, we had one ordinance tonight, 14624, but we're going to hold that until our next meeting and not discuss it tonight. So we'll move on to introduction of visitors. Before we start here, I want to just read the statement. The members of the public will be permitted the opportunity to speak on any issue or concern which pertains to the city during the portion of the council agenda devoted to introduction of visitors. All comments shall be directed to the chair, and a reasonable time limit of approximately 5 minutes will be imposed. If there is a group, please appoint a spokesperson. Speakers should approach the microphone and state their name and address so they can be entered into the minutes. Members of the public will be afforded the opportunity to comment on other portions of the meeting as determined by the chair or by a vote of the majority of council members present. I know we have at least one speaker tonight that would like to start, and that would be Skip Sipis from Medina Metropolitan Housing Director. Skip is the executive director.
Microphone's on.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, for the record, my name is Skip Sipis, the Executive Director of the Medina Metropolitan Housing Authority, sadly at 120 West Washington Street here in Medina. I am also a resident of the city of Medina. Quick summary for you, dating back to 2021 and based on a meeting convened by then Mayor Hanwell with many clergy and laity, as well as many faith-based nonprofit organizations. The Medina County Housing Network, of which the city is a member, produced a comprehensive plan to address the needs of the housing insecurity in Medina County, focused on 3 phases. The first, expanding affordable housing opportunities to benefit Medina County employers who are seeking job applicants. The second is supportive housing development for those with federally defined disabilities facing homelessness. And the third being Medina County's first emergency housing shelter. First is thanks. Council should know that the city of Medina has been extremely supportive in all 3 phases of this plan. The city itself provided funding for the supportive housing development that will be on Lafayette Road, to be known as the Lafayette. The city has been extremely supportive of efforts to develop the emergency housing shelter with administrative support from city departments including building, engineering, service, yes, even Nino, and especially the fire department, Mark Crumley most of all. And the expertise lent by each department, you should know, has been invaluable to the planning and the development of the shelter. I wish every city and every jurisdiction that we work with was as efficient as the city of Medina. And then leadership and advocacy from the mayor and council has been heartwarming, especially to me as a resident. An update for you. At your place, members of council, tonight you have 2 things. One is a fast fact sheet. We'll help you answer questions relative to the emergency housing shelter, questions you may have or your constituents may have. In addition, you will find a thumb drive. If you connect that thumb drive to a computer, it will link you to a video that was produced by Leadership Medina County class last year, interviews with stakeholders speaking about the need for and the support for the emergency housing shelter, and includes one of the stakeholders being a person with lived experience. You watch that video, I guarantee you're going to be moved. Public distribution of this video is starting just now, so tonight you're the guinea pig, I guess. You'll see the shelter's name Next Step Up,
VIP screening.
both in recognition of the need for those facing a housing crisis, because people need to take affirmative steps if they're going to improve their situation. It's also designed to outline the boundaries of the county, Next Step Up. The shelter will be open 24 hours a day, every day of the calendar year. It will serve men, women, and children, and will be pet friendly, because pets are often a barrier to folks accepting shelter and the services that come with it. Each guest will sign a community agreement that outlines their rights and responsibilities to be a guest at the shelter. Responsibilities like it's your turn to take the trash out, it's your turn to empty the dishwasher. We believe that those types of responsibilities will engage those residents and give them the best chance for success outside of shelter. Each guest will work with a case manager, a housing authority case manager that will outline a case plan aimed at addressing the root cause of the homelessness. Collaborations with Job and Family Services, the Health Department, Veteran Services, Hope Recovery, Alternative Paths, and many more organizations will be in place when the shelter opens, and it will open in January of next year. The site is located within close proximity to all those service providers, as well as many employment opportunities and retail outlets. That location is the Housing Authority's old office at 850 Walter Road. That's why we're at 120 West Washington, which saddens me to this day. Transitions plans for the guests will be put in place, including resources to assist those transitioning out, so that gives them the more appropriate housing options, the chances for the most success. My ask of council tonight, there is none. None now, as the Housing Authority believes it's secured the operating funding for year one for the shelter. Future years' funding, however, will be required of the local jurisdiction. The state will provide some funding for shelters, but we'll need the 3 cities, we'll need the county, we'll need organizations like the Medina County Adam Board to step up and help fund the shelter in future years. As a general reminder, if you are food insecure, a federal entitlement exists. It's called SNAPS, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Now, my day it was food stamps. If you're poor and need medical care, there's Medicaid. Those are federal entitlements. There's no federal entitlement if you need affordable housing, if you're homeless. There's no federal entitlement for that, and there's none in the state of Ohio. The Housing Authority secures the resources it has by competition and performance. We have to compete to get it and perform to retain it. And that's what we've done in this county. The shelter's needed. The resources have been put in place to establish it, thanks in a great part to the Medina County Commissioners, State Senator Mark Romanchuk, and State Representative Sharon Ray. They found a way to get us $2.05 million to develop the shelter on Walter Road. And I am confident the Housing Authority will do all it can to make sure that the shelter will perform in such a way that it will succeed in helping those who are indeed in need of that shelter. I'm happy to entertain any questions, but I appreciate the opportunity to share with you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Cyphus. I appreciate it. Is there anybody else who would like to speak this evening? Okay. Introduction and consideration of tonight's ordinances and resolutions. I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings on the following ordinances resolutions. Ordinance 170-24, Ordinance 171-24, Ordinance 172-24, Ordinance 173-24, Resolution 174-24, Ordinance 175-24, Ordinance 176-24, Ordinance 177-24, and Ordinance 178-24.
Mr. President,
Mr. Simpson.
I move to suspend the ordinance and resolutions readings, as you already have mentioned.
Second.
Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Ordinance 170-24, an ordinance authorizing the finance director to waive certain uncollectible utility accounts.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Durham?
Thank you, Mr. President. These are accounts that have gone through either a sheriff's sale or a bankruptcy, and therefore we're not permitted to make any collections efforts, so we want to waive these out and get them off our system.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Simpson.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Ordinance 171-24, an ordinance authorizing the purchase of a security trailer from I2C Technologies for the police department.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Chief Kinney?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a security trailer that we're able to use for our larger events that we host here in the city. It will allow us to keep an eye on traffic and crowd control as well. It's being purchased with a combination of grant funds and a smaller portion of carry forward, and it also comes with a pretty significant discount. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Hare.
Yes.
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Ordinance 171-24 passes 5-0.
Thank you. Ordinance 172-24, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to rescind ordinance number 92-24 passed May 13, 2024, relative to the job creation grant agreement for Sandridge Food Corporation.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Mrs. Marshall?
Thank you, Mr. President. The company requested to withdraw their grant agreement due to a change in circumstances and a new opportunity that has presented themselves. So when more details become available for that project, which will be in the city of Medina, we will likely bring this a new grant agreement to council for approval at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the ordinance? Would the clerk please call the roll on the ordinance?
Hazeltine?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Shields?
Yes.
Simpson?
Yes.
Hare?
Yes.
Ordinance 172-24 passes 5-0.
Thank you. Ordinance 173-24, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to solicit requests for proposals, RFPs, for drug screening and associate professional services for the employees of the city of Medina.
Move to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Piccolo here.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this is for our annual drug screening and related professional services. Runs out in December 31st, so we'd like to get an RFP out so we can award by November. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll on the ordinance?
Rose?
Yes.
Shields?
Yes.
Simpson?
Yes.
Hare?
Yes.
Hazeltine?
Yes.
Ordinance 173-24 passes 5-0.
Thank you. Resolution 174-24, a resolution authorizing the filing of grant application for safety funds with the Ohio Department of Transportation, ODOT, relative to the installation of bump outs at certain locations around the square.
Move to approve?
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Piccoli?
Thank you, Mr. President. So the city engineer has requested this grant application with ODOT. The total cost of the project is $629,100. So we're requesting the maximum $500,000 with the grant. So the city's share will be $129,100. The project will install, as stated, bump outs on Court and Broadway and improvements to the storm sewers that are affected with respect to the bump out installation. And also it'll improve ADA curb ramps at all 4 intersections around the square and resurfacing of the pavement on all 4 sides of the square as well.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll on the resolution?
Shields?
Yes.
Simpson?
Yes.
Hare?
Yes.
Hazeltine?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Resolution 174-24 passes 5-0.
Thank you. Ordinance 175-24, an ordinance authorizing the purchase of 5 2024 Ford Explorers, including upfitting from Hall Public Safety from Montrose Ford for the police department.
Move to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Chief Kenny?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is permission to purchase the 5 2024 Ford Explorers. 3 of them are budgeted. They are the frontline police vehicles. One is a replacement for the new K-9 that we have for our school resource officer. Hopefully, in the future, that may be reimbursed with a grant that we're going to be requesting permission to apply for. And the last one is an administrative vehicle. Again, the last 2 will be purchased with carried forward funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any further discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll on the ordinance?
Simpson?
Yes.
Hare?
Yes.
Hazeltine?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Shields?
Yes.
Ordinance 175-24 passes 5-0.
Ordinance 176-24, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a ground lease agreement between the City of Medina and University Hospitals Health System Incorporated for helicopter crew site and ancillary single T hangar space.
Move to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Huber?
This is a lease agreement that we've negotiated with University Hospitals for the helicopter pilots who stay in the building out at the airport through the week. It pays $1,200 a month. It's a 5-year lease with a possibility of renewing for another 5 years. I'd like to thank attorney Brian Moore, who does a lot of lease work involving these kinds of situations at the Akron-Canton Airport. Works with the Retzel and Andrus law firm. He assisted greatly in terms of his knowledge with respect to these kinds of leases, and this time this ordinance would allow the mayor to sign the lease.
Thank you, Mr. Huber. Any further discussion from council? If not, would the clerk please call the roll on the ordinance?
Hare?
Yes.
Hazeltine?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Shields?
Yes.
Simpson?
Yes.
Ordinance 176-24 passes 5-0.
Ordinance 177-24, An ordinance amending ordinance number 190-23, passed November 28, 2023, amendments to the 2024 budget.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Durham?
Thank you, Mr. President. There's a few items here for the new parking official, and then some pass-throughs of donations and sale of a truck.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll on the ordinance?
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Ordinance 177-24 passes 5-0.
Thank you. And our final ordinance of the evening, ordinance 178-24, an ordinance amending ordinance number 119-24, passed June 10, 2024, relative to the expenditures to Rogue Fitness, doing business as Coulter Ventures LLC.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. President,
Mr. Simpson?
the emergency clause has been requested. I move to add it at this time.
My second includes the emergency clause.
Any discussion on the emergency clause or the ordinance? Mr. Mayor?
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr.
Make
Coyne?
this work. This is a second change order to this Rogue Fitness equipment for the City Hall workout room. It was passed by Finance and Council previously for $37,358.82. The reason for the addition, and the addition is in the amount of $93.09, is because there was an added shipping charge for the equipment that was not included in the original passage of the ordinance. So we have to modify that by increasing it $93.09, and the emergency clause is requested because it's been over 8 weeks for this to get paid. So the emergency clause requests to make sure this gets paid even with this change of $93.
Thank you, Mr. Coyne. Also, just a reminder that this equipment was completely grant-funded. I know the Van Epp Foundation, as well as Medical Mutual, and I believe the Lincoln Foundation contributed as well. So this was just a small amount to make sure that we didn't account for the shipping costs, so that will get it taken care of. Any further discussion on the emergency clause? Would the clerk please call the roll on the emergency clause?
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
And any discussion on the ordinance? Would the clerk please call the roll on the ordinance?
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Hare.
Yes.
Hazeltine.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Ordinance 178-24 passes 5-0.
All right, thank you. Any council comments this evening? Mr. Simpson?
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, we're getting close to the November 5th election. I want to remind people to try to be kind to one another. Also, I'd like to ask the residents that have political signs up with vulgar words on it. I know we can't infringe on your First Amendment rights, but I just ask you to remember that there are children that pass by those homes on a daily basis. Some of them are located in routes to the local schools. Just try to be kind to one another. You know, you can support whoever you want to support in the upcoming elections, whatever issues you want to support, but the vulgarity is uncalled for, and I hope you will at least consider removing those types of signs. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Ms. Hare?
I'm glad to be back from vacation, but unfortunately, the summer has come to an end, and I'm reminded of that when I get up in the morning and it's still dark when I go to work, and then it's starting to get dark as I leave work to come home. So just a reminder for everyone to be patient when you're driving. Look, I know as a result of the incidents that we've had on our square, I personally am even more cautious as I drive through the square, slowing down to watch for pedestrians, because not everybody is paying attention. So please be patient, take your time. You know, if somebody cuts you off, just take a breath, don't get angry, and be respectful and kind to one another. Thanks.
Thank you. Great message. Ms. Hazeltine?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say thank you to Skip and MMHA and all the people that worked together to put this project together. I remember when I first got involved in Medina County nonprofits probably about 10 years ago, and it was the big buzz, like, oh, we're gonna have a homeless shelter, we're gonna have a homeless shelter. Now we finally have a homeless shelter. And I'm so happy about it. So after a lot of talking, it's kind of like the courthouse. You talk about it for a really long time, and then it finally happens. It's very exciting. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rose?
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, congratulations to Skip, and we'll support you however we can. Thank you. As Mr. Simpson alluded to, we've got voting coming up. Early voting will start before we have our next meeting here, so I'm going to ask that everyone become an educated voter. Don't rely on just one source of information. Go out and get multiple, diverse sources of information so that you have a complete story. We've seen recently how maybe the media tends to hide things and slant things until you dig deeper, and then you find out that they've really not been being truthful to us. So do some digging, do some education, educate yourself. And then there is one issue coming up, issue 1 on the state ballot. I want people to consider that very, very cautiously. It creates an unelected, non-accountable bureaucracy that is going to take away our rights as voters. When was the last time you tried to buy an incandescent light bulb? You can't anymore. You have to buy LED bulbs. Why? Because an elected or unelected bureaucrat department said that you can't have a light bulb that doesn't put out, 45 lumens per watt. Okay, most incandescent lights are only 15. So they put something that is ridiculous. Now we all have to go out and buy incandescent or LED lights. We can't buy incandescent. And there's some people who have light fixtures that just don't burn that. So now you're out buying new light fixtures, etc. Unintended consequences to these unelected bureaucrats and their decisions. So carefully consider issue 1. I will be voting no because I don't want an unelected bureaucrat telling me what I can and can't do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. There is no further business. I want to thank all of our people in attendance this evening for coming tonight, and for those watching at home, have a good evening. And this meeting is adjourned. Have a good evening.